Hello, this is Ed Chapman, and this is the first video cast for Unit 2, which is entitled The Chemistry of Life. And in this first video cast, we're going to do an overview or kind of an outline of the entire unit. And I found this picture on the internet, and I think it's kind of a good place to start. If you look, these are all the words that are associated with Unit 2. And they're divided up by size. So the bigger words are the more important words. And you should maybe immediately be able to see that the word enzyme is the biggest word here, followed by things like reactions and structures. Okay, so these are important ideas that we're going to cover in this second unit of study this year. All right, Unit 2 test will cover three big ideas that are all associated with Bio.2, which is one of the standards of learning that Fairfax County has that it got from Virginia. And the standard number 2 says that you're going to investigate and understand the essential chemical and biochemical principles essential to life. So basically, we're going to be looking at the chemistry that keeps things alive. All right, now this unit breaks down into three parts. All right, we've got part A here, which is going to be focusing on water. Okay, so we're going to understand the chemical properties of water and how these chemical properties impact life. Now, we've already talked about this. This is an abiotic factor. All right. The second thing we're going to look at, part B, is we're going to attempt to understand the structure and function of macromolecules. Now, macromolecules are big molecules. The word macro is the opposite of micro. So in this section, we're going to be looking at large molecules. And finally, in part C, we're going to investigate one of these large molecules in a more detail. And these are called enzymes. And if you remember from the last slide, enzymes are a big part of what we call metabolism, which is the machinery basically that keeps cells alive and running. Okay, now let's focus a little bit on what we're going to be looking at with water properties. Okay, so chemistry and impact. Okay, those are our words here. The chemistry of water and its impact on life. Okay, the first thing we're going to look at is a property of water called cohesiveness and adhesiveness. You may have heard these words before, but we're going to be exploring what they mean in relationship to water molecules. Second thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at some chemical properties of water, all right, that are caused by cohesion and adhesion. And finally, number 3, we're going to really focus in on something called pH. And you should have learned a little bit about pH in high school, but we're going to be identifying chemicals that are what we call acids, bases, and of course, things that are neither acid or base, but are neutral, all right? Okay, part B is about the macromolecules. And in part B, we're going to be looking at the structure and function of large molecules or macromolecules. And we're going to learn about how they are built. They are all built from carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. Okay, so we're going to be looking at these ideas. Then we're going to explore a little bit, not very much, but a little bit about how carbon atoms hook together to build chains and rings, or what we call macromolecules. Number 3, we're going to look at the specific structure and function of different macromolecules. And you may know some of these already from the food you eat: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. All right. Then we're going to identify the different functions of some proteins. So we're going to focus in on proteins a lot. Okay. And the most important protein are going to be enzymes. And finally, you guys are going to learn a little bit of chemistry. We're going to learn about dehydration synthesis and hydrolysis. So how do you build and how do you break these large molecules? Okay, so that's the second part. And finally, the third part of this unit is we're going to really home in on the most important of all these biological molecules, the enzymes. All right, and we're going to look at the structure and role that enzymes play in living things, especially connected to pH and temperature, and how well they work at different pHs at different temperatures. And I'm going to explore the idea of catalysts, okay? And finally, and because you guys are honors, we get to add a little bit more to it. We're going to make sure you understand that enzymes are a form of catalysts, and we're going to compare how different catalysts affect something called activation energy. So there it is. There's the whole Unit 2 laid out for you. And the following video casts are going to explore each of these points in detail so that you guys can understand them. Thanks you for listening.